Alright, I'm starting a recording.
I am. We need to have two separate votes.
Oh, absolutely. Followed by each chairman.
Well,
It's on.
request.
You might have to turn on the.
Not so sure, but I'm still.
Thanks, Beth.
He knows it's fine.
He's on his way.
Oh, yes, okay.
He had some other business to tend to up on the north end.
Oh, really?
He and I got a little bit of an argument, and I won.
What's that to do with the fair?
Yep.
Oh, what's it called? I was told I was selecting called the meeting daughters, which is illegal.
Well, I guess we gotta shoot.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I suggest that we turn the meeting over to call in and see where we can get from there.
Okay. Me, I'm gonna turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. So my understanding is that everybody's had an opportunity to review on the Board of Selectmen, that is, had an opportunity to review the capital budgets. My second understanding was that tonight we were going to revisit that and see what of these items the selectmen either approve or disapprove of it in whole, and what items that they wish to look to the fund balance policy reserve versus town meeting commitment or potentially other reserve accounts. As just a point of reference, all of the total capital requests this year total $781,000. In total, $557,100 is being recommended by the manager to come from fund balance reserve, $16,676 from fire equipment reserve, $7,500 from recreational building reserve, and that leaves $200,000 for commitment town meeting. So if you'd like, we want to just start at the top and go through each individual department and go from there. Does that work? So the first one is I labeled it as general capital because that's one that doesn't necessarily fit into any specific department. The only thing on this general capital is $5,000 for the cemetery maintenance reserve, the 9739 stone cleaning and repair account. And that's based on selectmen comments from the last meeting that we should be putting some money aside to pay for the cemetery, maintenance and so forth. My recommendation would be that money be raised at town meeting and placed into that 9739 account.
Everybody okay with that?
I am. That's what the committee has wanted to do. We've been able to go from cemetery to cemetery, making repairs of the stones and cleaning every year by having money, because for many years there was no money put in there, so I do support that.
So you want a motion on that one?
Can I just ask a question, madam? Is that something new from what we had last week?
That was something that was discussed last week, so it is new, yes.
Okay.
Yep. But it's in that packet that I just passed out.
It's new, right, we put it on the commitment,
It's on the
not
next
out of
Yes.
fund balance.
Right.
And with that, I would make that motion. Put it on the commitment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here a second.
That going into the budget, that's what you said? Okay.
Mr. Thea, sit down.
All right.
We just started. Motion and second to put $5,000 from cemetery onto the commitment and not fund balance. That's the current motion. That's right.
We have a first and a second on this, you
We
said?
did.
Yep. Don't hold up the man, keep going.
Any other further discussion? If not, all in favor?
So next is the transfer recycling center. The capital request we have from the transfer station, $100,000 to replace the loader, $4,500 to replace the heat pump, $7,500 for cement repair, that's the demo retaining wall, replacement of 3 of the overhead doors, 2 at the transfer station, 1 at the recycle center, that's $15,000, and then painting of the buildings, which is $20,000. So that's a total of $147,000. On the budget sheet, we're recommending fund balance reserve to fund these items. I know a couple of these are open for, up for discussion, of course. I have asked Ed to come in case we have direct questions for him. Did you want to come here in case they have questions for you, Ed, please?
Question. Didn't we appropriate some money last year for painting the buildings?
We talked about it.
We did.
Go ahead.
It come out of your fund balance, but then it come to find out that I would only put out the bid for the front of the buildings, not the back, and they pulled it back. So we didn't do none of it.
Ultimately, we didn't move forward with funding.
Right.
I'm sorry, did I miss something there? Ed, what did you just say?
Last year, we tried to put money up to paint the buildings, and there wasn't enough money in it to do the whole project, so they pulled back and we,
Oh, on the paving.
right.
Oh, okay.
I think it was that, I thought we didn't have the quote right,
Right, because I only put out for the front of the buildings, not
right?
all the way around. There wasn't enough money to do it.
3 versus 4 sides.
Yeah, I recall.
So in here you do have the quotes for the loader and heat pump and so forth. Did we, so I don't know if we want to start at the bottom with the small stuff first, painting of the buildings and those smaller items, and then talk about the loader, or what are your thoughts?
Well, did the loader take a turn for the worse? How long's it been? Since we looked at it.
Few months? Good.
You was there, a year ago, right? Yeah. And now you turn the steering wheel to the left and you go to the right. So I got Mutt coming to look at it tomorrow, but he thinks it's in the steering as far as the washes or something. He said the O-rings and all this on it up. But, I mean, we just keep dumping money into it and dumping money into it. And I think it's time for it to go away. But last year they offered us $30,000 trade-in. I don't think we paid much for it when we bought it the first time. They gave us a heck of a deal on it. It's a 2002, so you've got 20 years in it.
It came from the
On the highway department.
right?
Have we made, since last year, have we made any attempts to possibly find a used one? Not saying that that's the route we want to take, but I think we should probably at least look.
I have not looked for a used one, no.
I thought the deal was that we were gonna wait until the highway department needed one and
I think that was
put the
talked
new
about.
one in the highway department and put the used one at the transfer station.
I know that that's been commented on along the way.
Why would you do any different?
I mean, I certainly think that would work. I know that Ed has expressed some concerns for the size.
But I thought we pretty much ruled that out the day we were there.
That's right, for
Huh?
we did.
Did we ever change anything about putting the trailer underneath so you didn't need the loader to go over the side?
Trail up underneath.
Well, like for your demo and stuff?
No, we did not change that because I talked to the other guys, they said that it's never happened before. All that was a 100-yard container that Almighty brought in and we filled it from them when it was in the building. That was the only time we ever used that wall that they put in down there.
I think the depot is.
Later too.
The two guys worked there for 27 years. I hope they know what they're talking about. But maybe Bob might have done something, but not as far as the town of Oxford. I mean, Brian's been there since the town took it over, and Bert has too. And said it's never been that way.
I can't swear to you that I wasn't running it when it was in it, but I mean, why would you, if you could take something you could back up to and throw it into it versus throwing it on the ground, beating it up with a loader that they made the load demo anyways, so you could pick it up over the side. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's just that's the 50-yard containers. That's what they're made for, but the demo containers.
I don't think a loader's made to handle a demo.
Been there since I don't know, it was a 910 before the highway department went down. That's what they always done.
I ain't arguing what you've done. I'm just saying going forward, it wouldn't make sense to look into. I thought we were gonna look into it. No?
The safety, that's another thing. Work, what is that, work?
Safety works.
Safety works come, and that's not even in the plan for them, because people fall into the thing. They had one down in, I think they told me down in Cape Elizabeth or something, guy got pushed into the hopper and all that, so. And you're looking at it farther than that. They was all worried about the little hole that we fill the rubbish in, it's too big. They want to put cement blocks on that and make the hole smaller.
somebody to back up too. I don't know what I am. I don't know why that's any different than dumping in your office.
The hopper is all gated.
I don't think it would take an awful lot to make a gate around that.
Put a guardrail up or something, maybe.
I know when I go to Millwood, people pull up and they got cable going along, post and cable, so people can't go over the edge. They throw everything over it. So I wonder why we couldn't do something like that. I mean, I don't know why you don't have to leave it open. I think when we discussed it last year, that it was, we talked about putting cable, posts in and cabling it off, so people can't fall down over the bank. But nothing was done.
And then you'll have to do something else with the ground because it's all sand down there and you ain't gonna get a truck in there to get it out. Get your.
Down below?
Yeah. Gonna have to come to some type of cement pad for that to sit on.
I think we talked about that too, putting in a cement pad.
You're gonna have to, because I mean, the truck, you never get it out once you get it full.
But nothing has ever followed through on that.
We ought to at least look into that before we talk about spending.
Yeah. Yes.
Could I make a comment? I worked for the town of Poland for 11 years, and we had what you're talking about, several different places. And for 11 years, I never had anybody fall into one. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but there was a curb so that there was a curb about so high, but I mean, you could make it a little higher, whatever, just so that stuff could be put in there, it'd be a lot easier. And my theory would be, I think I'd agree with Floyd, why handle it 2 or 3 times if you can handle it once, or maybe twice at the moment. But it did seem to work, and as I say, I was there for 11 years.
And I'm familiar with that same setup.
So if we're just gonna throw it in the dumpsters, that means you wanna be adding some more money to the dumpster fee because we're gonna be hauling a lot more often. It ain't gonna be squished
We
in the
can add quite a
crushed.
bit to it for the price of a load, couldn't we?
Not really, no.
Oh?
You can take the load backwards if you want to, Floyd. I mean, I don't pay it, but I'm just telling you that it's been on the capital improvement for 4 years. And it just keeps getting butted back and butted back and butted back. The transfer station takes in revenue. I mean, it ain't like it's costing you that big bundle. Why don't we finance it for 5 years? Instead of coming out with a big chunk, we had it all voted in last year. We couldn't get 0% finance because nobody told me they wanted 0% finance when we started. And then the loader comes back and we can't have it. I mean, we are a department in the town too. Well, I'm just saying though, we need things too. And you just keep kicking it off and kicking it off and kicking it off.
I opened it up. Anybody wants to
No, that's what I'm saying.
speak?
That's what all I'm saying is you keep kicking it back, kicking it back, kicking it back. Sooner or later, this thing's gonna die, and then we're gonna be sitting nowhere.
So, I'll weigh in. That, if it died, that's when we should be going to fund balance for $100,000. Other than that, I do think for something that large of an expense, we should be budgeting for it and not looking to pull it out of capital or out of fund balance all at once. Not saying that you don't need a new loader. I know we all went down when you brought the highway department's loader over, and I think it showed everybody that loader would work for what we do now. Then there's the discussion of if and when we do buy a new loader, is it gonna go to the transfer station, or is it gonna go to the highway department, or it's gonna get used probably more like it's built to be used. I don't know that the board's gonna weigh in on that. We'd probably weigh in whether we buy a new one or not, and then whether the board or the town manager decides where it goes. I don't know. At this point, I don't think, especially without knowing what's gonna be coming into fund balance after the audit, which you told me about, I don't think today is the day that I'm willing to approve it. And I was willing to approve it before, and I may be willing to approve it down the road, but.
Can we put some money in an account somewhere and build this up so we can buy it?
I'm not opposed to putting some money into the budget.
Like
to do that.
the metal container, that is no money the town appropriates money to from Grimmel's, And that takes in money every month, put that in that account like you did the cable account, you know? And then when it gets enough money, you can come to you guys and try to spend it. It just goes into the general fund now, I mean,
What, the revenue?
the revenue
That's
from
where
that,
it's supposed to go.
from the
Yeah.
metal.
Well,
They have there's no appropriated money from the town for that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to say is that, yeah, all the money, the revenue we receive for the scrap metal, we'd like to be allocated to the, like a loader reserve.
Transfer station equipment reserve or something like that, you know, and it goes into that account. There's no money appropriated from the town to run that scrap metal.
How much money did you get out of that last year?
20, I think it's close to 20,000. And that's all metal that the townspeople bring in and just throw in there, you know?
right, and then you get money for it.
Right. Have that revenue there.
Yeah, I don't know that I get the, let's see.
I don't know that now's the time that we change that, but I guess I'm not against, if you wanna take that money, comes in, John can put it back into his equipment for the transfer station, I don't have a problem with that.
In order to get the 30,000 for a trade-in, what conditions must the loader be in order to get that 30,000?
That's been running, but I don't know, they come up and inspect it and drove it, and everyone come in with a different price, but the high one was 30,000, the other one was 24, 25,000.
That price was based on the condition that they assessed it
Yeah.
at when they came in before,
Right.
which it could change now.
It could.
Could be less or more.
It could go
Right.
down or it could go up.
Right.
I know that, I don't think you're gonna find any used equipment around right now.
You can do a couple of things. You can appropriate money every year through town meeting to put in an equipment reserve account to buy a piece of equipment. You can do that. You can also finance it for 4 or 5 years and budget the money every year to pay the financing amount. Or you can put it in the budget for the full amount every year. Not every year, but the year that you want it.
Right.
I can't support taking $100,000 out of the fund balance account unless it's an emergency.
I don't approve that either, but
So
maybe,
I don't support the funding for this, for that. But I also think that when we all went down last year and looked at the different options and how everything was, I think that probably some of those options should have been looked into to see if they would work as far as dumping over that bank. Because I know even Lois talked about how that was done before. And I talked to Brian about that. Brian told me himself. I mean, he remembered doing that. That was done years ago that way.
Brian from the
Yeah.
result, okay. He told me it didn't ever happen.
Yeah.
I know
Why
that
would we
we
build a wall down there if we never used, come on, stop thinking about it.
No, Bob built that wall, he had a 100-yard regular trailer truck, and he backed that up there, and that's how he loaded his stuff in. That's the only one that ever used it, is what I've been told. Bob put that in.
Okay.
And when I worked there, I can remember Warren, with everything being in the building, we kept all the demo in the building, we'd take it out of the building and load a 100-yarder from Almighty. The big trailer truck would come in, he'd spin around, pull it up against there, we'd load it all in, but it's all squished up and broke up. So if you're just gonna have the people just throw it in the thing, there's no way to break it up, so it's gonna take a lot more.
Still move the edge of your loader and push down on it like you're doing now.
No, that wall's a lot higher than a 50-yard container.
From the other side.
Yeah, but you could drive around the other side and do it from the other side, just like you do when you're loading it out
Yeah,
there.
we'll usually break it up though first, that's the thing. I don't care if you fund it all at once, I'd like to have an account where, maybe we can finance over 5 years. And if that's an option, then we put it out there to the people and say, this is what we want, a 5-year interest-free loan or something like that, and go from there. But I'm just saying, it's time for it to go away.
We have a transfer station reserve that we spent money on, there's nothing there now. There's not a vehicle reserve like there is with the police, the rescue, and the highway. I don't know that we need a separate, because you don't have that many vehicles down there.
Equipment might be all right, though.
But that might be, would be budget committee recommendation or select board recommendation to put money into that line towards a loader.
Like start that account now, or recommend starting that account now, if you will.
If that's the direction that we want to take. Now, again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I don't know what's the best. Whether we take a new loader and give it to the highway department and hand it down, or we just buy a new loader from the transfer station. I can see the logic of both ways, but
Why couldn't we,
either way, there needs to be money set aside for these types of purchases.
but if you're saying you're bringing in 20,000 a year of metal, why couldn't we set it up just like the town has set it up with the snowmobile club and everything else? And the revenue comes in, and each year we vote at town meeting on an article to take the monies in the snowmobile and put it in the snowmobile account. Why couldn't the same thing be done for the transfer?
You mean,
If
you
they're brand new,
the snowmobile club.
They go back to the snowmobile club,
Right,
right?
I hear what you're
And this year could be the same way. If he brings in 20,000 this year,
Yeah.
20,000 goes in, but if he brings in 15,000 next year, only 15,000 goes in.
If you do that, you can't use that as projected anticipated revenue.
Right.
So you're gonna lose one way or the other. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend keeping it on the revenue sheet, because here you're projecting, on the revenue side for the metals, that you're gonna bring $20,000 in, right? That 20,000 is being used to, when you do your mill rate calculation, as revenue coming in, so that you have that money to apply towards your taxes. If you take that $20,000 and put it in another fund, then you can't use it. You're gonna have to reduce your revenue by that 20,000, because you're not gonna get that in to go towards
So
the
that
tax.
isn't the same as a cable account like you've done?
No, it's not.
It's the money comes in and,
Yeah, it really isn't the same thing. So then what happens is, that 20,000 would go in an account. So I don't support doing that. I support all revenues being projected as revenues, and then what is on this list of revenues that comes in, that money is used towards the tax commitment. So anything that you're going to take out of the revenue stream and put towards in another account, that money can't be part of the anticipated revenue. So you're either gonna use it for the revenues that are going to lower the tax commitment, or you're going to put it in its own account after it comes in as a reserve account.
that's fine, the reserve account's fine.
I don't support that. Well, I'm just telling you my opinion. I think the revenue for the metal needs to be kept with the revenues and used towards the tax commitment, just like it is. If you want to budget a certain amount of money every year to go towards equipment purchase, then you can include in your capital budget, say $25,000 in the budget to go towards equipment or vehicle accounts, and then that money goes in there. And then when you have that money available, or your machine or vehicle dies, then you've at least got some money to go towards. And years ago, we did that. We budgeted money every year to put in a vehicle and or equipment reserve account, and then that practice stopped. So I support doing that, but I don't support taking money away from the revenue that's used to lower the tax commitment to put in a separate fund, because then you can't use it on the revenue anymore.
Okay. That's not a guaranteed fund, probably, though. It's not
No,
that
it's
money
not.
coming in.
So if I may, I guess if the board wants to do that, we do, as Dana has pointed out, have a transfer station reserve. So maybe an approach would be raising and appropriating $25,000. I'm just blowing a number out there. You know, X amount of money at town meeting to be placed in the transfer station reserve, the 9716 account, for future transfer station equipment, or however we want to put it.
So what would be the difference? Just win-win.
Yeah,
If
right,
you're
that's what
taking
Karen
20
said.
if you're taking 20 million, 20,000 out of general fund, then you're over here earmarking $20,000 at town meeting. It's a wash as far as.
No, it's not. It's not as far as the bookkeeping goes,
Yeah.
because that $20,000 that you're putting for anticipated revenue, everything that comes in on this sheet for revenue is used to lower the mill rate. So that's why you have to be conservative when you budget what your revenue intake is gonna be, because if that revenue doesn't come in, you don't have enough money to pay. This is like money going towards your budget, your revenue, which you know that anyway.
Right.
So let's just say no, well, if you put $20,000 here and take it out, then you're not getting in what you're anticipating the revenue is gonna be, because it's going someplace else.
But if you go to town meeting and raise $20,000, there's no guarantee, like you're saying, what's gonna come in the general fund. But it's still gonna go to tax commitment, right?
It's going to be added on your expense side, not on your revenue side. But you can't, it's like double dipping. You can't put it as an anticipated revenue, because you're gonna take it away from the anticipated revenue. And I would bet you, if you put that in front of the auditor, he's gonna agree with what I said. You can't have it, you can't use the same $20,000 for an expense and revenue. It just doesn't work that
Can
way.
be one or the other.
If I may, follow up with you, Sharon, what you're saying is, and I believe you're right, is if you take that $20,000 and earmark that, then that's no longer revenue.
Exactly.
In other words, it's like a dedicated revenue account. You're taking that money that comes in, it's not pushing it over here, so you can't regard it as income because it's not a part of the general fund.
Right.
Therefore, even though you're trying to say you can raise 25 over here, or whatever the case may be, you don't record it as income because it's earmarked for a dedicated revenue account. It's no longer income.
And also to
It's bookkeeping, that's what it is. You and I probably do differently on the farm.
I know, Casey,
No.
question,
Yes.
colleague. So I'm hearing this is really, the conversation sounds like one's dealing with two different questions. One is loader for, either new loader for highway department, current existing loader moving on to transfer station and trade the other. Second question is starting a reserve fund for future similar purchases, items that the transfer station needs. So I would, at least in my mind, I'm trying to separate those and kind of go back to what we started with on the budget, to buy or not to buy a new loader, and if so, where do the funds come from? So I guess my question is, that I haven't heard answered, where is the highway department's loader at in its lifespan? And are there existing reserve funds set aside to make a purchase? If a decision is made here to get a new loader, give that one to highway, whereas Dane said it's going to get used for what it's designed for, and then have their current one move over to transfer station. So then that would eliminate potentially, if there's enough reserve there, and that's what the select board agrees to do with support of highway, to take this item, the transfer station purchase, off the table. And then the second question could be addressed, does the board want to start a reserve fund for them, and if so, how much, and how would that be funded in this year's budget cycle? Because that's kind of what we're going to need to figure out next steps on the budget.
Yeah, I had
Stop.
a similar question of whether to answer the highway department question first, because again, it would moot putting the reserve in.
There's minimal money in the highway department, so could we just use it for something else? Not sure of that.
I guess the concern I have is if we go forward and purchase the loader for the recycling station, 2 years down the road, we have to buy a new one for the highway department. That would be two brand new, basically brand new loaders. We only need one new one. So I know the board's gonna make its decision, and I'm gonna recommend ours, that we don't do it this time. we wait until we do what we did before and transfer the old one from the highway department and buy a new one for them. Because they're the ones that use it more regularly than a lot heavier than the transfer.
Do we hear a motion on the board? So, do we need to make a motion to not include the loader on the fund balance?
I think to keep it clean, why don't we? Please.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Is now a good time to, or we can wait till we get to the budget? I do think we should put some money aside in one budget or the other for vehicle reserve. Now, whether it's the transfer station or the highway department, I guess that depends on what we're gonna buy the new vehicle for, but, when we get to the budgets.
Hit on that. What are the selectmen's thoughts on the other items that Ed has brought up here in his request? The heat pump, cement, overhead doors, and paint. Those total $47,000, based on his estimate. And if I may also, just to make it clear, throughout this capital budget, these funding recommendations, those are only just my funding recommendations. Those are based only on my opinion. So if the board has a different opinion on funding sources, by all means, I'm not trying to tell the board how they should spend this money. It's just my recommendation when I put things together.
So Ed could prioritize cement repair, overhead doors, and paint building. Which one's the most important?
The cement work is a safety issue right now, because the wall's falling in. The doors are all rotted at the bottom. I'm thinking
They open and close.
they open and close, but gap, stuff comes in, water comes in, you come in after it rains, and water's in the building. And then the painting is different colored. I had the metals fixed on the recycling building and all that, and they couldn't match the colors, so the transfer station really needs to be painted down. The two doors at the transfer station, I think, probably went in insurance money but never got replaced. Only the big one got replaced after the fire. And I know that we had some damage down in the building down back, and they got like $17,000-$18,000 insurance money on that, and I got it done for $7,500 through Building Solutions. So that money's somewhere, so I don't know where, but.
So there was money for doors due to the fire.
I believe so, yes. And I don't think they ever got replaced. Replaced the large one. And that's an insurance account somewhere, I believe. Not sure how much money's still in that, but that's what Butch always told me was an insurance account.
I don't have an answer for that tonight. So.
Well, if there's money in an account that we received for those doors, we need to figure out where that is.
They replaced the big one. They replaced the big one, but they didn't replace the two small ones.
Are you sure that it wasn't just the big one that would have been a part of that?
And I was told that maybe it was in last year's budget, Butch put in there for the doors replacement. And they never, because they didn't go through town meeting, you went through your fund balance, and we never done it. So it never got done. That was like $11,000, I thought, was the last time. And
So
that's
you've
where I'm
got
confused
three
over.
overhead doors, is that what you're looking at?
Two small ones at the transfer,
Yeah.
and then the one at the recycling on the other end of the building, don't open and close.
And are one of these three the same that you're talking about, that we got insurance money for?
I'm thinking the two at the transfer station, but I'm not gonna say yes, but Butch had it in the budget last year.
So what I would say on that is, I would say do some research to find out if there is an insurance account someplace that has some money in it. Bring that back to the board, and then, because I know that we were going to take that out of fund balance. So we can deal with I think we can deal with the overhead door issue that has to be replaced once we find if there is insurance money or not, and then that money for that can be handled at that time.
Okay.
So it doesn't need to even be here in consideration for the budget, if I'm saying that correctly. You follow me?
But he does need one door.
The recycling.
Recycle.
But I think what Sharon's trying to say is that if we'll research what he was saying when Butch was here to find out if the insurance money came in and wasn't accounted for and is sitting aside first before you guys.
Except for the two.
Yeah, so whatever is in the insurance account and whatever we need to replace the doors, we'll do the net to come out of fund balance. That way we don't have to worry about going any further on this right now.
I'll call Butch and ask him, ask if there was, and the two doors are supposed to be replaced. But I know there was $11,000 in the budget last year in the capital improvement, that it didn't go nowhere.
Yeah, let's you and I chat about it first.
So if we had anybody even look at the door?
Yep, yeah, I got estimates.
Yes, there are estimates in here.
Okay.
Never been there since the place opened.
So why don't we just fund that as is listed, if we have the money for replacing doors, because we just kick that can a little farther the next few more years down the road. Why don't we fund the doors? If we find out we have insurance money, why can't that go back into the fund balance or put it
That's
into?
what I thought I just said.
Where you said that we were going to take two doors out and see if there was money, then.
No, I'm not taking any doors out. Whatever we need for doors, we will find the insurance money, take whatever we have from the insurance account, look at what it's gonna cost to replace what he has for doors, and then take the rest out of fund balance.
But bring it back to the board for a vote.
Yes, the board can handle it at that point. But there's no point in saying, okay, I'm gonna approve $15,000 for doors tonight, knowing that we might have other monies there, we may not need the $15,000. So see if there is other money. If there is, bring the quotes and the money back to us, and we'll take a vote on it, and whatever we need in addition from fund balance, it may not be the 15. Isn't that what you're saying, Scott?
I say we approve what he's got listed there, and if we have insurance money, we just put that money back in to replace what we take out of fund balance.
We don't need to take money out of fund balance.
Can
We don't need to take $15,000 out of fund balance if we only need to take 5.
I understand that, but we will just prolong this process longer and longer and longer.
It's not being prolonged. Find the money. If we have money, we should know it's there.
Hey, what about the heat pumps? Okay with that?
I would make a motion that we fund the heat pump and the cement repair out of the fund balance tonight.
What about the painting of the building?
I think that can wait until we get the audit back and find out how much money we have coming in the fund balance.
And I agree with that.
I mean, we have a lot of money coming back in the fund balance after this audit comes in, correct?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Money coming into the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
We will know after the audit's complete, which shouldn't be too much longer.
I hope not, yep.
And then we'll know, we'll have a better idea how much more we can fund for projects like this. I think everybody here probably has a certain amount that they're willing to spend out of fund balance. And there are probably, might be 5 different amounts, but I'm certainly not interested in funding all of it tonight without knowing how much is coming back in.
Okay, so we got 4,500 and 7,500. Is there a motion on that?
I need a motion.
Any second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
And the other item? Oh, I'm sorry, and the other items are the loader and the other items we're setting aside for now.
Right.
and we're not recommending those go to a commitment, we're recommending they set aside. Just want to make sure I'm understanding right. Okay. I interrupted you.
Am I free?
I'm good with you, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is recreation. Unfortunately, Patty can't be here with us tonight. She's got another commitment. So we have 16,600 total in this request. Patty's looking for dock replacement and installation for the Route Run 21 at 9100. She's enclosed or provided an email which is attached, and then she's looking to do a new snack shack or new hut, as we talked about, over at Pismo Beach for the beach attendants. And what she's proposing is 7,500. We have had some back and forth. A couple board members and I have had some back and forth discussions on this snack shack hut here and so forth. And some of the questions that were brought up is whether or not we're even allowed to put another building down there. More information about the condition of the current building that's down there. And frankly, what size building do the beach attendants really need? It seems, is a 10 by 20 too large. So I'm just sharing the conversations that we've had. So my thought process, though, again, I was pointing to fund balance for the docks, and I was pointing to the rec building reserve for the hut, if you will.
So I support taking the money from fund balance for the docks so that can be taken care of. Hopefully we can get them installed this year. If it goes through the budget process, then we have to wait, and we won't be able to replace those docks this year. We'll have to replace them next year. So I support that. I'm not comfortable yet with this hut for the beach attendants. I asked the question where that would be built. I was told, well, you told me yesterday, somewhere between the water and the parking lot. So there are shoreline zoning issues as to where that can be put. There are no plans for this hut other than these dimensions. There's been no quotes. We have no clue whether it can be built anyplace in that location. We don't know anything about it. There is an account here that you could take that out of. But I know last year the beach attendants went into the old concession stand, which is over 25 years old, and they sat in there. Beach attendants, they're perfect. They're not supposed to be sitting that far off from the beach. They're there to watch over the beach, clean it up, make sure that everything is orderly there. So I would not support purchasing this year under any means until something can be brought to us showing exactly where it's going to be placed, whether or not it meets all requirements with shoreline zoning. And when all that is in order, then bring a proposal to go on a budget. And anybody that knows me, I don't very often not support anything to do with recreation, but that is not something that I support right now because there's no plan.
I went down there today and I was looking at the old concession stands. I know it's a little distance from the beach and the area, but I think a little rehab that could suffice.
It could, and like I said, they did use it last year to store their items and also to go in there and take a rest, but it's still not in a location where it would be convenient for a beach attendant to be monitoring the beach. It's too far away from the beach. So if that's the plan, to have something like that on the beach, then I think we have to first find out from the code enforcement officer where could something like this be located. And I also mentioned the fact that somebody needs to look at the deed on how we acquired that property, because it does state that no permanent structure can be built. When the old concession stand was built, it was not built on a permanent platform. So that, I think, needs
Is that a motion?
It is.
Second.
Did you have some?
I was wondering, knowing that original snack facility is not a permanent structure, and I'm sure it does need some rehabbing, is it possible to find out where that can be put, rehab, and move it to there rather than going out and buying a new one?
Well, that was something I discussed with somebody today, and it actually could be done. It wasn't called either.
No, I just wondered whether or not it would be in such disrepair that if you move it, it won't be existing when you get it there, then don't bother, but I just was thinking outside the box.
It's a possibility.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Oh,
So just to make sure that I am clear, fund balance for the docks and nothing, then we're not moving forward with the hut. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving forward to the police department. We have the police chief here as well. Looks like Ricky's here with him too. They have a request this year of $100,000. They are looking to replace 2 police cruisers. They have a budget of $50,000 for each. And so I don't know. Would you like the chief to explain why he needs 2 vehicles and so forth?
Okay, we're looking for 2 cars. I have 2 that I need to replace. One is $140,000, the other has $175,000. And this year, we budgeted, we're pretty much done our vehicle expense account. That's updated. I'm just keeping it short and sweet. I'll answer any questions that you have.
I think it was last fall, you came up, showed me a Dodge
Durango?
Durango, yeah. And what other, I know well, as a county, when I was county commissioner, we didn't have very good success with the charges on the county end.
We're a different patrol than the county.
I understand.
The county goes from here to McGalloway, code 3, on over an hour and a half at excessive speed.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah. I'm not saying, we're looking for a good quality car so I can provide good
Right, but
public safety.
that isn't what you really wanted. According to you, when it came up,
We
you
like
guys
the room of
wanted
a
the,
Durango or an SUV.
right,
Obviously, right now, the availability of SUVs is lower than none.
has anybody put out an RFP yet?
I called 5 different dealerships in Maine looking for something. And they all said it was probably about a year out. I spoke to Leo Chacoin at Quirk and Augusta. He wouldn't even commit to when they'd be able to get it anymore. He had 20 a little over a month ago, and they're gone.
So to answer your question, no, an RFP has not been put out. What?
Oh God, you're not having to keep going.
No, that's fine.
But I think you, at the last meeting, you said that you had, granted, you're not crazy about the charges, but you did find 2 of them.
We did have 2 at Bessie's up here in Paris.
Now, the question, then it come up that, we wanted 4-wheel drive. Are those all-wheel drive or
The
are they two-wheel drive?
V6 all-wheel drive.
The ones that the county had, were they all-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive?
Well, so they used, at first they used, the patrol vehicles were rear-wheel drive, heavy engines. We had one that was an all-wheel drive, and then they eventually went to all-wheel drive. I would concur that Charger is a great patrol vehicle from about April to November. And it works fine in the winter too, until you have a snowstorm with 8 inches of snow. You guys have had Charger before?
No, we have not.
You both know it's not ideal. It's not really what you want. I think my question is more, how badly do we need it now? You got a couple of vehicles in the fleet that got a lot of miles.
Right.
I'm surprised that gotten this far. How many vehicles we have?
6.
6? And in your opinion, how many do we need?
We need 7. My opinion, no. We do need 6 vehicles.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're gonna run one 24/7, and we're just gonna be in the same boat that we are now. My opinion on it.
So the vehicles, you have a vehicle.
Yes, I do.
You usually take one of the oldest.
I have the oldest vehicle in the fleet. Yes, I do.
And the captain has a vehicle.
Yes, he does.
And then you have 2 day shift patrols, 2 night shift patrols, and your sergeant's override.
But I have my SRO. He uses a vehicle because he needs to
Okay, that's.
cover the schools, both
That's the
schools
one I was
here
missing was in this.
in the south campus. He definitely needs a vehicle because times have changed with COVID. He's helping bring kids home, get kids to school.
I was not accounting for the SRO. because I
Now there's that.
Forgot that we had that over there, so. Much the same with the loader. I do think it should go to RFP. I could probably be convinced of buying one right now just for the number of miles on some of the vehicles. And I know the availability is limited, but if we don't put the RFP out, we should be putting an RFP out perhaps for next year. Put it out now because we'll be in the same boat next year if we don't.
I can do an RFP, New England wide. We checked the site, the same site that the fire department had used, and they called us back, but those vehicles are in Tennessee.
Yeah, we went out, and I know Andrew Scoggins gone out, they went to New York, I think, to buy their last ones. I don't know. Worst case scenario, put an RFP for in the next 6 to 9 months, 6 months to a year. It's hard to get them to commit, but even if we buy these vehicles, if the board approves buying 1 or 2, I still think we need to go to RFP soon for the next ones. Or we'll be here next year at this time in the same predicament.
Our calls have increased. We're up 10%. Vehicles are on the road 24/7. I need 2 vehicles, not 1, so I can provide public safety for this town. And I think from that point on, we should get 1 a year and not, and rotate them out.
I think I said that 5 years ago.
Yeah, you did, and so did
If a
Selectmen
vehicle
Jackson.
lasts 5 years and we need 5 vehicles, it's pretty simple math. We buy 1 year.
Yeah.
However it works, but we haven't been doing that.
I got a new employee who used to take care of your
Yep.
vehicles, and he told me that the 2 highest miles ones are definitely beyond it now.
They're way, I'll tell you right now, they're way more miles than what we would put on at the county.
I mean, like saying, I get it that your other one is maybe not exactly what we wanted, but if you can find one local and it will do the job, what? Because that finding equipment is no joke. You can't find anywhere. He's not making that up. That's real.
No, 100%.
What is the preferred vehicle that you want? Not aside from anything being available, SUV or, Ricky, I'm talking to you too.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. SUV or Charger, what is the preferred vehicle?
We've never had a Charger.
Okay, well, would you prefer to have an SUV or a Charger?
We prefer to have an SUV.
Ricky? Okay.
I agree.
So I think that's the way that you should go for one of them anyway. I know you're talking about wanting 2, and maybe it does make sense to get 1 Charger, but not 2, in my mind. And I'm only gonna throw this out, but when it's time for budget process, you should already have an RFP in hand for this committee so that we know exactly what the delivery is and what the cost is. That's just my opinion. So my suggestion would be is to put an RFP out right now for 1 vehicle, for what you want, an SUV, not a Charger. And if you think you need a Charger, now And in most cases, when you bid out, when you ask for pricing, I know the deliveries are backed up now, but they were always backed up. Every time I did an RFP for a police cruiser, my delivery for the new one was a year, unless they had something on hand. So that's just
You've never
my-
had to wait a year, Sharon.
Well, I'm just telling you what I had to do.
Okay.
And I always dealt with Leo at Quirk. And on the new ones, it would be quoted for delivery of a year. If he had something in stock, we could get it right now. But you have to start that bid process early. I'm not trying to be a bully on this, but I just think maybe we need to look at how we do things. But for a police cruiser and any vehicle like that, I think we have to have a formal RFP. When you get the price back, they're going to tell you when the delivery is. You're going to go on the schedule at that point of when that vehicle will come. Every time you get a verbal, you're not on any schedule to get a vehicle that is a year out. So I would at least put one for an SUV. I don't think it makes sense to get two charges right now because they're available and you're willing to settle for two. You want an SUV, go through the process of an RFP and get the SUV that you want, even if it is a year delivery.
But our expenses are gonna go up on the repairs.
I get that. You budget, the newer your vehicle is, the less your expense budget is. The older your vehicles are, you add more in that maintenance budget every year.
I understand that, but I want safe vehicles out there too.
I'm not, well, yes, you have to have them safe. I'm not saying they're not going to be safe, but if, unless you can tell me that those vehicles are unsafe and have to be taken off the road right now, and I don't, when I asked that question just earlier,
How's the electronic steering in yours? Is there any truth to that rumor?
Well, it's not the greatest, no, that's correct.
Shouldn't that be kind of a critical thing?
I don't,
Huh?
I'm the chief, and I don't, very rarely am I first responder. I am at times, but.
It's one of these vehicles here, yours,
The highest mileage on
hundred and seventy-five thousand.
No, mine's the 140,
Oh.
139, 250.
Liability, whether he's using it to go home with, if he hits somebody with it, who's gonna have the problem?
So, if I may. So, first of all, Sharon and I are on the same page when it comes to the RFP, you know, everything she just said as far as RFPs. Generally, when I'm putting together a budget, however, I like to know that, put forward that we have a budget, whether it be a capital budget or not, to work with. Generally, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about allowing the purchase of these vehicles immediately right now. What it would be is we'd be talking about the money to be appropriated so that the purchase could be made in the near future after an RFP process. This process has gotten muddied this year because nothing is available. So the chief and Ricky have been working on trying to find options. So we're kind of somewhat putting the cart before the horse at the same, as well. There's vehicles available. There's two chargers available. They're having a hard time finding other stuff. So normally, I would say yes. We need to wait. We need to do an RFP. We need to, get the funding and do that normal process. Given the circumstances and given the mileage, whether it be one or two cars, we have an opportunity right now to purchase these chargers. If the board is not interested in purchasing those chargers, it's fine. We move on, but just bringing those opportunities to the board so that you know that they're there. On a note on vehicles, I do think, and I as the manager feel that I need to lean on my department head on telling me what kind of vehicles that he needs, or she needs, I guess, if that's the case. You're also talking to a guy that used to do his patrol in a rear-wheel drive Crown Victoria, whether there was 2 feet of snow on the ground or not. So the thought of an all-wheel Dodge Charger sounds like heaven to me. But maybe I'm a little old school. So anyways, I just want to make those comments, that's all.
So we should do it.
Looking at the material that Adams passed out to us, I don't see anywhere listed a charger. I'll ask you the Dodge Durango. Am I misinterpreting what's going on? I'm lost with the charge, I don't see it.
In that packet, in the updated packet that I handed out that has the updated capital in it, there is the information I got for the charges in there as well. It should be.
Oh, I'm sorry, I see where it's written on now. I didn't realize it was a charge when I looked at it.
No offense, Henry, but I wrote charger on it.
I did, I saw it. I thought it was just good.
Mike, did the Pleasant, Tennessee have two SUVs?
They do, but they're not, the guy was not very forthcoming that when Zach and I spoke with him. We had talked to him about having them all fully equipped. One was 46 and one was 49. And that didn't come with everything we need, so it seemed like it was going to be more expensive by the time we get down over 50 grand. And he didn't give us a base price on those two models.
Is that the one you emailed me about, Mike?
Yeah.
So what is the total cost of the Charger?
The charge is that, it was 31.8.
And then plus the equipment that you have to have for it and everything?
Yeah, estimated equipment is around between, because we want to update new equipment, we haven't had new equipment for years, between 10 and 12,000.
So for the car and to get it equipped?
Like 42.5 if we go the Charger route. That's, will give us enough money to make everything, all the changes.
So the 50 is just a ballpark figure.
Yeah, 50 is a ballpark figure. 50 is high with the Chargers, and it's not enough for the Ford SUV. It's close.
The only thing that you got on the table is the Charger. Am I getting that right or not?
Right now, yeah.
And you're telling me we need them right now?
Yes.
I make a motion to take the Charger.
Second. To talk about it.
More discussion?
So, it's not ideal, but we're not in an ideal situation. There's no other vehicles in probably New England, police vehicles. And you guys have looked, and we've looked. The county bought the last Dodge Durango from Essence. The last, there was a Ford pickup truck from Mr. Chahone. They're even out there right now. I do think we need to not only, unfortunately, purchase these two vehicles, we need to budget some money for a vehicle for next year, because you're gonna have one or two more next year that need to go. And I do think the RFP needs to go out sooner rather than later for that vehicle.
If he's only looking for one next year.
Yeah,
Is that in it?
yeah, I agree with you
I
folks.
missed it.
Yeah, so the 5-year capital plan, that's what it contemplates, is that we do two this year, and then one a year moving forward. So we get into that rotation.
I have something to add. I have not looked all over New England.
I have.
Okay.
I have. Because I really wanted to find a Durango or an Explorer, even a Tahoe. Couldn't find anyone.
Sure. So Dana can correct me if I'm wrong, but having just cut a check for a county vehicle, it was to replace one that got totaled. And so I think you're looking at a situation, one of our deputies hit the deer and totaled one of our vehicles. We're buying one of those, and you won't have anything. So it would be my recommendation, just based on the way we go through vehicles, and given the scarcity we've all experienced in trying to find these vehicles, that again, it's not ideal. You want the RFP, you want time, but it's rather dire. I don't mean to be alarmist about it, but it really is.
The alternative is you're going to buy some street level vehicles that put the chief in a non-pursuit vehicle. If that's the vehicle you can find, and that's not ideal, but it can be. That could be done if need be for a short period of time. You need pursuit rated vehicles for a patrol. Absolutely, you can't put them in a non-pursuit rated vehicle. You're just asking for a whole lot of trouble.
And there's Kona for it.
The chief or the captain, perhaps they're doing a civilian
rated vehicle, but knowing you have limitations. If that's what it comes to in vehicles, again, next year, who knows? The big departments that buy lots of vehicles, they buy them first.
The motion, the second on the floor, any more discussion on the, no, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a quick clarification?
Yes.
So is that up to $50,000 for each vehicle? And we're waiving the RFP process, just to be clear?
Yeah, but I think they should start right in on RFP for next year.
For next year, just like Gillingham said, yeah. Okay.
With your quote, I'm not interested in trading that police, the fire vehicle to
Yes,
Benson's
sir.
for that amount.
That was ridiculous. Okay,
And that is coming out of fund balance.
and that is coming out of fund balance.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
just so I know where we're going on the budget, is that approval for 50 for one vehicle, or was that for the 100 for one vehicle?
Two vehicles.
So, but
That's not budget though, that's fund balance.
fund balance is what I meant,
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's make sure we touch base in the morning to make sure we get this taken care of before they go away, okay?
Okay, yes.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt.
We still haven't?
Well, hopefully no one's hit a deer in the last few.
Last few hours.
I don't know when the last day we checked that he had them, but you better check quick.
They said they was holding them for us until we did a review.
Are we ready to go to the highway now?
Yes.
All right. So I got Jim here with us. He's really looking forward to coming to the front of the room.
Not really, Don.
All right. So for the highway department, we have a total of $466,000 in requests. The first is a replacement of the 2009 Freightliner. This is not an RFP, but it is a quote for budget purposes to then, so we can go out to RFP if the funding is approved for $230,000. That's Jim can give better specifics, but that's for a truck and the headgear and the plow and wing equipment. The next item, when we scroll down here, is a sidewalk machine and snow blower, and that would be $165,000 total. Now, I have also noted on your sheets a tractor with attachments, and over on the far right margins, attachments, snow blower, mower, sweeper, and it's all about $60,000, and you can see that information's in there as well. In discussing with Jim, he feels that the tractor would be able to do what we need to do and save a significant amount of money, but we'll expand on that in a minute. And then the next item is a 4-ton asphalt hot box recycler at $45,000. You'll find that in your materials as well. Also, the replacement of a 0-turn mower for $9,000, and then a welder for $2,000, and then the trim around the garage for $15,000.
That trim should also state roof work.
Trim and roof work? Yeah. Okay. So, did you want to maybe talk about why we need to replace the Freightliner and what you're looking for? And
Well, on that one truck, I've been here 3 years. I have just under $40,000 worth of invoices since I've been here on that truck. In just this past week, I was at the garage again. It's at the point where it's getting like wiring issues. We just had a big fuel issue with it. We've had EGR valve replaced with it. It's a 2009, and was, from what I understand, none of them were really taken care of previous. I realize, I think we're on like a 15-year cycle for trucks. I hope, that's, so it's getting close to that 15 years, but I really, really don't believe we can depend on it
for another couple of years before we get to the 15-year cycle. At one point this year, I had 3 of them in the garage during the snowstorm. Unfortunately, it was stuff that couldn't be fixed now. In '09, I think we waited, I think the last time was 2 or 3 weeks for a car. It's got a Mercedes motor in it. So it probably came from Germany. I don't know where it comes from, but it was a while getting here. And it's just to the point where it's not an every snowstorm dependable truck.
So I think what we're looking for is, again, we've received quotes to give us a cost estimate on what our budget needs to be. If the board chose to go to fund balance for this, we would go out to RFP. If the board wants us to go to town meeting, then obviously we would look for funding from town meeting up to, or potentially this is something that we would consider, getting a loan on and getting a note on, or a lease purchase or what have you for the future. But
And again, the same with any other vehicle. They all told me up front that it was going to 12 to 14 months.
Because this wasn't something they had on the floor.
Oh, no, it was to be built.
He doesn't. I mean, '09 was the first that they got into, it was the earliest out of this emission stuff. And in the environment that they're in, with salt and everything in it, everything's, all the tiny wires. You know what happens to that when you dump salt on it?
It's got 127,703 miles.
I actually support the purchase of the Freightliner. I think the 2009 definitely has to be replaced. I agree with that. It just needs to be taken out of the fleet. In supporting that coming out of fund balance, that's probably going to be the end of what I'm going to support coming out of fund balance, because I'm not going to be looking at taking $500,000 from fund balance. And I could support that. As far as the sidewalk machine, I think in reading the materials, the $60,000 tractor that you're looking at versus the actual sidewalk machine, I think that will work. Those pieces of equipment work good with the attachments, so it will also give you opportunity to use that in other situations as well. That I think should come on. It's not needed right now. Having the money to order the Freightliner now, going out to bid is what I recommend anybody doing an RFP with the specifications that you want for a vehicle and the attachments for it. I think that the sidewalk machine, my recommendation would be that be on the budget. The other item you have here is the zero-turn mower. I think that can be put in the budget along with the welder, and probably have to convince me on the actual need for the $45,000 asphalt mixer.
It couldn't get off completely easy. It's not really a mixer, it's a recycler. And my issue is now, I just paid $140 a ton for coal ash. That stays in a hole maybe a week. This hot box, as I don't know if you guys know, but they're designed so I have like a 200-yard pile of asphalt down back that we accumulated from changing cross pipes and stuff. My initial plan was at some point have somebody come crush it and we could use it on a dirt road or something. But these asphalt hot box recyclers, I can actually put that into the hot box they're on a timer, or you don't have to use the timer. You can set it, it heats it up, reclaims that hot top, and it's fine to use again. That being said, and I can't guarantee, but we should not have the need to purchase any more coal patch. I understand it's expensive. I'm looking at a long-term picture, not just because I want something that's pretty and new. If your coal patch or whatever gets cold at the end of the day, you can leave it in there and heat it up again the next day and keep going. There should be minimal waste that way, and you use an all recycled hot top. Norway has one, Paris has one. I have not used either one of those. I watched them function. The material shovel's really easy, and it seems to be staying in place. And my thought was just, I get it, it's an expensive initial cost, but over time, it would be worth it.
What's the expense, what is the life expectancy of something like that?
From what I'm being told, 25 years, as long as it's kept up. I mean, you might have to change your burner or something, but get on a trailer. You can also dispense tack if you need to. He's supposed to get back to me whether it can dispense the rubberized crack sealer. He said he wasn't 100% sure about that. But he's supposed to get back to me about
That
that.
would be good if it
Absolutely.
would,
Yeah,
because that could be quite expensive to have to buy.
exactly.
It is actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I budgeted some money for that this year, but I've never had it done, so I don't know what it costs.
You do it yourself.
Well, that's a very good explanation. Thank you.
Is the state using any of this hot patch?
Yeah, state's got hot boxes, yeah.
I'm looking at along 26 right near Steeveville Road.
Yeah.
Are they hot patching that?
Last week they was out there with a dump truck, he's cold patch. So, but they do have hot boxes. Why they're not using it, up here, I don't know.
Good.
I don't know, maybe they only have one per camp and it's, I don't know.
I was gonna say, if that's an example of hot patch, then we don't want it.
No, right, oh, no,
But just like a brain, they have one, it's whether they use it or not.
Yeah.
if that was the result we got out of the hot box, I wouldn't even came to you guys and asked.
That's a result of not having one.
Right, that's what we're doing now. I can't tell you how many times we've been up Whittemore Road and go up there today and never know we've been
And
here.
you could make one more trip.
I know, exactly.
Okay,
I'm gonna make
can I ask a
one.
question on
Only
that?
after you have the blowout.
Yeah.
The thought is, we're gonna
Colby.
I think you have a question.
Question on the hot box. So we've got the cost figured out and life expectancy of a piece of equipment, but cost of maintenance for that piece going forward, and then the other question is to recoup our cost. How much of the material that this is produced are we paying for per year by not having the box? Trying to get an idea how long it's going to take to recoup costs.
Right. And I just, okay, just since this spring, I'm gonna say from the end of February until today, I spent $4,000 in full pack. That'd be, what's that, a month? Maintenance wise, it's like anything else. You gotta keep up with it, it's gotta have a routine maintenance schedule. You gotta obviously grease wheel bearings, all that stuff. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that nothing's ever gonna go wrong with it, because that's impossible. But, like I told you, you might lose a burner once in a while. It's all propane operated, by the way, I didn't mention that, but, or diesel. It's your choice. And you may lose a burner. Other than that, it's just like a self-contained trailer.
Any warranty with it, start out there?
It's like 5 years. Yeah.
So $40 difference between hot top and cold patch.
2 years and 5 years.
Well, right now, they're quoting me $90 a ton for hot top, and I'm paying $140 for cold patch.
Yeah, but you're saying you could use what you've got down back?
Absolutely. There's like, I got probably 200 yards piled up down there that like I said, I was gonna have crushed at some point, but when we got enough.
Well, there's winter more, you can do the rest of the roads.
But,
Yeah, you use it all there, you know.
But, yeah, yes, there's, yeah.
So it could be used for, I think you explained to me, it could be used for the potholes, but also like Coldwater Brook Extension, when we fix that, it could be used for maybe a project that size.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go much bigger than that. And you can dispense either by chain or if you want it dumped. So you can empty it out if you so choose.
What's the availability on this machine?
All I have to do is make a phone call. And it's readily available.
So that's something that could wait.
Oh, absolutely. That can go to town meeting. You know, that's how
And
we
I
want to
want-
do it.
Well, not necessarily town meeting, but find what we have for coming back into fund balance.
That is one of the items that I thought would, if it goes forward, that we would put towards town meeting, frankly, or if you guys would like to reconsider after we have the audit back, whichever works.
So I see that, on the yellow here, that we only put that $230,000 for the truck. Is that right?
I would make that.
Partial bills?
I did. I got 5 quotes. And Freightliner was lowest at this point.
No, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
for
no,
us
I just
here.
wanted everybody to know I didn't just call Freightliner. And Mac wouldn't even give me a quote because they have no slots left and they have no idea when you can get one.
Boy, probably was that.
I can't get it right.
Okay. So do I hear a motion?
Second.
Any more discussion? Not all in favor?
Was there discussion about the tractor? Was that a,
That was gonna go to
Not on fund balance.
Huh? That's not coming out of
Nothing
fund
else was gonna come out of fund balance, correct?
So I'm going to town meeting.
tractor town meeting, zero turn town meeting,
Right.
and welder town meeting? Is that,
I did just get some quotes back today about the zero
True.
turn mode.
Yep.
And I think it was
7,000 is that. And roof and garage trim town meeting as well. I don't mean to reiterate it, I just want to make sure I'm clear, that's all. Okay,
You scratched the snow blower as well?
so we scratched the sidewalk machine and snow blower because that was an attachment for the sidewalk machine.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions for Jim?
I didn't need any tums or anything. I didn't need any tums or anything.
We can fix that.
Regular town meeting.
I know, right?
All right, next up, thank you, Jim. Next up is the fire department. The updated one here, the 2 purchases for the fire department are air pack bottles and turnout gear. It's a total of $16,676. Fire chief's put together a plan where he's doing, replacing these air pack bottles on a 5 a year at $1,000 a piece. And then the turnout gear, 3 sets a year at $38.92 a piece. The cost of this stuff, the supporting documentation is in here for you. My recommendation for the funding of these capital purchases would be the fire equipment reserve for the total of $16,676.
Do you have that money there now?
It is there now.
I would like to think that these are gonna be recurring things that we're replacing so many every year, and I think we did this, I'm not sure Chief Soccer was here or who was the chief at the time when I was on the budget committee, it was, we were gonna get so many a year. It's a recurring purchase like that, it should be in the budget.
The bottles are a 15-year shelf life, so we broke it down to 5 bottles every year. it's a recurring cycle.
And those 5 bottles every year, that amount should be in the budget.
It has been for the last
Every
few years, 5,000 every year.
So if it's there, why are we taking it from the
So-
reserve?
I think it's, I think we're talking, I see it as an equipment replacement. I understand it's a recurring cost. I see it as a capital item. That's just my perspective. That's why I've included it in the capital budget. I think it's one of those things that we have, we have these reserve accounts. There's money available for the purchase. I'm taking the approach, and I understand the money won't be there next year. But at the same time, I also understand, that when we get the audit back, that we'll be reapproaching the fund balance and seeing what needs to change there. But my perspective is these major equipment purchases should be capital purchases outside of the operating budget. But that's just my perspective and the way that I do it. That doesn't mean it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just my approach.
I actually agree with that it should be part of the capital purchasing budget. Because you have to add money to it every year so that when you need it, the money's there. And in this case, it's put into a reserve account. So, yeah, I agree with that.
I don't disagree. It's, so are we gonna spend that money from the capital account and budget this coming year, which I see turnout gear in here.
We lowered the line item in turnout gear because it got moved to capital the number of gear at each place each year.
Okay.
Right, in the operating budget, it contemplates the replacement and repair for, on-the-job breaks. This is the replacement cycle, if you will. So, yeah. So I think if I'm hearing what you're saying is that we're going to spend this money today, what about replenishing it for tomorrow? Is that the gist of what you're saying?
And I just want to be clear where, if we're budgeting, we should be budgeting money for this, I think, in the budget. If it's something that we spend every year, we pay the fire chief's salary every year, it goes into the budget. To me, it's just more, I hate to use the word transparent, but that's money that we know we're going to buy air packs every year. It should be there. It shouldn't be something that we pull out of fund balance. Emergency situation, unless it's an emergency situation.
Did I just hear that it was in the budget already? I didn't, it is not.
No, in the operating budget, there is some money there for repairs of turnout gear and so forth.
But the other stuff, the replacement stuff is not in there?
The replacements is part of the capital budget, the separate piece.
Okay. Well then, if it's already part of the budget, why would we take them about coming out of the reserve? That isn't what you're just saying?
Well, we're gonna take it out of the fire equipment reserve tonight. I'm assuming it's gonna go through, and I don't have a problem with that. If we don't budget it in the budget, for next year, that reserve won't be there. So now, next year, we'll be looking at the fund balance policy. If we didn't budget for it, and we've already expended the fire department equipment line, it's gotta come somewhere next year.
So, this is again my opinion only. One of the things that I think that we meaning the board and the manager need to talk about in the future is this fund balance policy account. We need to nail down exactly how this is going to be handled moving forward. One of the thoughts that I have is after we get the audit, I wish we had the audit frankly months ago. That's a frustrating point here. When we get the audit back and we find out what we actually have in our unassigned fund balance, that's when I'm going to present to you folks, meaning the board, the recommendation for, based on our policy, what to be transferred from unassigned fund balance to the fund balance account, this reserve account. And at that point, I think that we should probably make it an annual item on that same day that, let's say, $300,000 is transferred over. Are we leaving all of that money in the fund balance reserve, or are we going to transfer, say, $20,000 to the fire equipment reserve for future purchases? I'm hesitant to go to town meeting and and recommend asking for $20,000 for fire department equipment when we may seeing that money come from, the fund balance policy account. I don't want to use the word that I'm cheap, but I feel like that's a more frugal approach. That's all.
I think my hang-up is that we don't know, we don't have the audit, so we don't know how much is gonna go back into the fund balance policy line.
Yep.
And without knowing how much is gonna go back in there, I'm reluctant to spend too much out of that line. We're not talking about spending money, we're gonna use the fire department equipment line, so I'm good with that. I don't know, going forward,
That's your concern, it's gonna fall.
and knowing, the audit's taking a little bit longer, and usually we have it by now, and I think that's probably my biggest hang-up, is not knowing what's there. I don't want to run the fund balance policy down too far without knowing whether we're going to have any. I do expect there's going to be some, I think you do too, it's just a question of how much.
Yep.
And that's why I said what I said earlier, is I'm hesitant to spend or approve spending much more out of fund balance right now because we really don't know what that amount's gonna be once the audit is completed. We always hope it's gonna be a high amount, but it may not be. We don't know that. And until we know that, I don't wanna run into the ground because we have some big items that are coming up that we're going to need money for, like the revaluation, for one thing. And if that money can come out of fund balance money, then we don't have to budget that. So that's going to be a big cost. So I'm with Dana on that too. The reserve account that you're fire equipment reserve, is that fire equipment account that has $20,196 in it? Is that the one you're referring to?
Let me double check
Where
here.
you take that 16,767?
Line 9.
9709.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, 9709. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay, wish of the board.
I make a motion to fund those out of that line, the fire equipment line.
Second.
Line.
Second that. More discussion? All in favor?
Thank you. All right, and then the last capital budget is for wastewater treatment sewer. I did not ask Lee to be here because I frankly thought this was rather straightforward. Making a $30,000 contribution to the treatment plant repair reserve account, the 9730, and my recommendation would be to put that on town meeting.
I make a motion to do so.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Okay, that's all we have for capital requests this evening. Yes. Okay, so let's figure out how much we just approved.
Somebody just asked over here because I lost track of where you were at.
Oh, you did?
I should have been.
I'm gonna make a motion for the budget committee that we adopt the recommendations that the board of select persons have made as it relates to the capital improvement account.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, members, I appreciate it very much for bringing us up to date to where we are. We're in concurrence for change.
Do you want me to take a couple minutes and just add this stuff up real quick and then...
Well, I would say maybe want to wait on that item because I don't know how the rest of the budget committee feels, but we've got two things left that we've got to deal with before we can vote on budget recommendations.
Yep.
One, third-party requests, two fuel budget.
Okay.
So, I think
I think it's not knowing tonight, as long as we can probably email us.
Send it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
because if we can address those,
I mean, they're rough like that.
those changes can be brought into the revised budget based on votes on the capital equipment.
Okay.
And then I would think by next week's meeting, we can have a near final version to consider for the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable to folks?
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Fine with whatever gets us out of here by Thursday.
There you go.
I know.
You could just make a motion to approve everything as written, and that would get you out of here right now.
No, wait a minute.
So if you want, okay, if we hit the third-party request first?
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody? So that's under municipal. So at the last meeting, we talked about Life Flight for 1,028, Seniors Plus for 2,000, and we had a gentleman here from Androscoggin Home Health requesting 500. So you have documentation from all of these folks in here, or the organization, excuse me, in here. What I had included in the budget calculation was $3,028. That was based on what the town has donated to Life Flight and Seniors Plus. I believe it was last year, so I didn't include any of the others because I thought that was up to the selectmen and so forth to discuss.
You guys gonna make a recommendation, or do you want?
Well, personally, I feel that Life Flight, 1,028, senior citizens, 1,500, and 500 for Androscoggin Home Health. That's all I think.
What was the last one I'll call it?
Androscoggin Home Health, 500.
I'm sorry, Colby, we have enough time here and over the whole business.
My thoughts, go back, Life Flight, 1,028, Seniors Plus, 1,500, and Androscoggin Home Health, 500. What's the other thoughts for the board? Anybody else think about it?
I would agree with that. I would do, only as because of the numbers, I would do 1,000 instead of 1,028. I like even numbers.
I would appreciate that.
It just, it's not as messy as the population. I know that.
So what would you suggest, Sharon?
1,000 for Life Flight, 15 for Seniors Plus, and 5 for Androscoggin. Just like Colby said, I just took out the $28. And it's only because of what we do.
Just an even three, Sharon.
What's that?
An even three.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, anybody else have anything to say? I'm waiting.
I mean, I'll say what I said last time, I just don't feel that taxpayers' money is money that I should decide what was a good idea to spend on something to deal directly with the town. I've been in the minority before.
I can agree with Floyd, but we think these do have a direct impact on the town. All three. Life Flight, hit or miss, but the other two definitely.
I can go with Sharon.
I would agree with the board's recommendation that we go with 1,000 for the Life Flight, 1,500 for the Seniors Plus, and 500 for Androscoggin Home Healthcare.
That motion.
For a total of 3,000, yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Opposed?
Fuel costs? So would you like me to go to fuel costs next?
Yes.
All right. So I handed out a couple of spreadsheets regarding gas and diesel forecast. So one thing I just want to throw out there is that I think I noted it in your an email I sent out here. But Ed and I discussed the transfer station. Here it is. Transfer station diesel. We found an error in the diesel calculation of gallons. It actually should have been 570 gallons. It was 300 something prior to that. Because we didn't account for all 3 pieces of equipment, we only accounted for 2. So moving that up to 570 gallons brings that at 350 gallons to 1995. So it's a small change from what you have on your fuel forecast. But I think for tonight we need to decide what the boards feel is a comfortable amount per gallon to pay, or to budget here. And so I've done the same thing, here is I've got $3.50 a gallon all the way up to $10 a gallon, and based on what the boards feel is the right price for those, I can input those numbers into the budgets.
What's our price right now?
I have estimated $3.50 a gallon in this
No
budget.
tax or anything else? No tax.
Right.
It's a guesstimate.
I know.
And I might as well speak to it anybody does. I hate the thought that it's gonna go up anymore, but I don't know that I necessarily believe it's going down, but with the town pricing and everything, it's hard to believe it's gonna get more than 5, I would think.
What's actual town price for gas and actual town price for diesel?
350.
Right now?
So, well, right now we're finishing up last year's bids, and we're either side of $2 for each of those. So we're doing really well right now. But that bid expires, and we are going to have to go back out to bid. April is usually when that happens. But last year we put the bids out, and we didn't get anybody to respond. We had to actually reach out directly to the current vendor to get them to even give us a price to lock in.
Let me frame it differently, because I don't know how we get what the town pricing is. So I sure know what the pump price is.
Right.
I know. So what's town price relative to pump price? In other words, is there taxes we're not paying?
Right, we don't have to pay
Something
state tax, for instance, when we buy it. So that's why it's discounted.
else? And how much is that a gallon?
35 cents. I think.
35 cents.
So if gas is $4.35 and you pay $4,
Right.
and diesel, is it the same deal or is it different?
There's a different amount of tax on the diesel, but I can't. You got something?
Right now, we're paying $249.9 for the year.
Yep.
I don't know what gas is at.
Another thing that, just as a tidbit that we're working on too, is Jim's been looking into, we've got those tanks over at the highway garage. He's been getting prices on what it might take to get those tanks back in service, which would then allow us 2,000 gallons potentially. Yeah, to purchase 2,000 gallons in bulk, which would be significantly cheaper. But that's a work in progress that you folks will hear about when we actually get real numbers. So,
What do you guys think's the price?
I would include a higher price for all fuels, yeah, than what we have.
450 or 550?
450, 550.
450 or 550, that's what he has here.
Well, you can change those.
When are we gonna contract? When are we gonna try to?
April's generally when we put this out. So I'll put it out, and I like to advertise things for 30 days. So April, then we get it back in May, hopefully.
So,
Go with the high one. Go with the high
I'm
one.
not trying to be difficult here, but couldn't we budget a certain amount and then do an emergency line that you budget separate? And then when we get to town meeting, maybe we just cut that emergency line because we're not gonna need it, or now we're definitely gonna need it.
Well, I
We
think
have two separate lines of fuel.
I think one way to do that is, if we want to do a projection today, and let's say we want it 5 or 450, whatever you folks said, and then the bids come back and we find out it's 350 a gallon or 4, whatever it is, on town meeting floor for these budgets, I can raise my hand and recommend that we do a reduction of that particular budget by $1,000 or whatever it might be. So
based on what the bids have come in.
Right. Yep. If they let me talk.
You want a motion?
Either way, you can motion it either way, up or down, if we need to.
Let's go with $5 a gallon, make the motion.
How much more
Five.
for both fuels?
You had to pick a number that was in between the two estimates on the spreadsheet, didn't you?
Go five, go with the 550.
Don't matter.
550.
Okay with budget.
Motion.
Second.
All right.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Was that for the 5 or the 550?
550.
550.
So Adam's already got that number all worked out. I don't want to
I can only add once. So just so everybody knows, that means that total town-wide, our budget for gasoline will be $51,761. Our town-wide budget for diesel would be $72,661. So
What was the original total?
originally for gas, town-wide, $32,939. Originally for diesel, $46,239. So
The bottom electric dump truck.
she's
Robinson Hill, left stop charger out.
Number of barrels. What was that? 550?
I'm sorry, Henry, what was that?
What was that new one for 550?
550 gas would be 51,
I guess that, it was the diesel, which we had to
Diesel?
adjust that.
72,661.
Thank you.
Yep.
The President today released, how many barrels of gas out of the Federal Reserve? What, a day or day and a half, what?
$1 million a day.
That's all.
Million a day.
Million a day until it runs out.
Done.
We could reduce it a little bit. We'll take it out of the-
Well, that's depends whether it would sell to us.
I have no opinion. So, all right. Do we want to try and go through any of these other budgets if we have time, or what would the board like to do?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the budget as presented with the adjustments that have been made this evening for all categories, with recommendations from the budget committee to reflect those amounts.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as such.
So, Henry, for clarification on the discussion, so the changes that Adam included in this budget that have been discussed at all the prior meetings, incorporating the capital budget is voted by the selectmen.
Yeah.
And then third-party payments that we talked about.
Yep.
And 550 a gallon on all
Yes.
fuels, numbers projected to be clear.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of it? So forth.
Painless.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, opposed to
I'm not ready to do that. I don't know if everybody else is, I might be outvoted, but, I mean, we're done with them. They made their vote and recommendation.
Okay. I'm happy to do whatever you'd like to do. Would the selectmen like me to, we could start right at the top and go through each department if you'd like?
Well, I don't know that we need to go through each one. I held most of my questions because we were here for their budget committee meeting. Maybe I should have asked more as we went. Come on, we got too big of a budget. I'll show you that.
We gotta reselect that clock.
I know, I keep looking at it and
6 months and you're right again. So, one of the items I noticed, right off the top, the regular salary lines in most of the departments.
yes.
You did a very good job breaking them down, so let's start right
I'll pick on any one, but for them in front, under admin, you get the code enforcement officer first.
Yep.
And your attachment A shows that he's being paid at a rate of $26 an hour.
Yep.
If that's accurate. And then you have a 5.9% increase for COLA,
Yep.
and then another 60% or 60 cent increase. That drives his new rate to $28.13, 13.4 cents.
Yep. So the approach that I took for these payroll lines is that last year employees received 1% across the board, and then taking that a step further, COLA this year is 5.9, and they're also raising the minimum wage cost by that 50-cent amount. So that's where I came up with these wage amounts. Is I included COLA and the increase of minimum wage. Also weighing the fact that last year the town chose to only give 1% to the employees. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. I feel very strongly that we need to take care of our employees and wait in their rate. They 1% last year. It's great that we could do something, but we need to do something this year to kind of make up for that as well. Times are tough. They're tough for all the taxpayers, and I understand that. If it means that the manager doesn't see any merit increase whatsoever this year, and that means that we can give some of these other folks increases, I'm happy with that. I want to make sure we take care of our employees this year.
And I'm with you on that. Hiring people for less than what they're worth is hard enough. Keeping good employees that we already have is invaluable. And that's a good explanation. It seems like, to me, and I don't remember how we got to 1% last year. Was that cut at town meeting?
No,
We just said
we
because
as a
of
board.
COVID and expenses.
Trying to keep it, if I remember correctly, not to interrupt you, I'm trying to keep expenses down. That was the purpose of it.
So it was 1% and no merit?
There's 1% in merit, but merit at the maximum is like 33 cents an hour.
So I'm good with the budget. I think we're going to have, you get down, so you get to the police department budget, that's an 11.9% change on regular. Now, I understand they're under contract, and they have a new contract coming, so that's a guess. I think we're going to have a hard sell because people are going to notice these lines coming, and as long as we can justify doing what we're doing, everybody sitting here knows who's going to bring it up.
Yep.
The people that will bring it up, and they want answers, and they're entitled to answers as to why, and that will be the answer.
And I am more than happy to discuss and go through anything people want to at town meeting. I am planning on, and one of the reasons that you see this so broken down and you even find all this material on the website is that I want people to know what's in the budget. So, whomever can click on our information and know. So these aren't made up numbers. This is where they came from. So, anyways. Yep. Sorry.
Sounds good. No more questions.
I don't.
Everything? Okay. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the budget as presented with the changes that we discussed.
Second.
So it'll be the same number that.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Vote.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll put all the updates together and send them to everybody so that everybody has that.
Thanks, Adam. And I just want to say this, I think this is incredibly efficient.
Oh, well, thank you.
Process combining with these, hopefully the select board can do the same way.
I hope so. Thank you.
Are you going to state committee?
No.
No.
I give up politics. I gave up politics.
Oh.
Meet or adjourn?
Who wants to discuss hearing and
Can we do a quick executive session? Well, it's
Sure.
posted, so we can't do it.
We didn't post it, but,
I think it's an emergency.
You can add
Yeah.
it to the agenda.
yeah. So we need to make a motion to do that.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we go into executive session, based on whatever
The
statute
time
it is for emergency session.
real,
Well, David?
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
We'll take care of this.
Thank you guys very much this year.
No, no.
Been a pleasure.